And we are back. Sorry about that unscheduled interruption there, everybody. Nevertheless, house guests, people stop by every once in a while to say hi, so what you gonna do? Where did we leave off? Well, we got the this guy put back together for the moment, loosely. See the wires kind of sticking out the end yonder down here, all taped off for the receiver. I just kind of threw everything in here, just because I'm waiting for my other wired winch controller to come out of Plastidip. Um, so that's going to take like another, I don't know, 15 or 16 hours for that. So since I'm usually put my speed controller on top of my winch controller when I mount it up in here, I usually lay my winch controller down first, speed controller on top of it, receiver over on top of my steering servo. So since I'm doing all of that, like I said, I'm just going to wait for that controller to come out of Plastidip so I can get everything mounted in here right. So 1 second here. I'll put this guy off to the side. We'll get that WL Toys back up here and start doing some fabricating. One moment, please. And just like that, we are back. Took the twin hammers, put it away, and Plastidip that light controller one more time while I was gone there. We'll get this little convertible open here. Don't want to put too much stress on this thing. Throw a pair of wire cutters in there to hold it open. Alright, well, now we need to mount this light controller. And it looks like it wants to go this way, judging by the way the wires are kind of already curved. I guess I could twist this one around that way, maybe. And hit the receiver, which is going to be sitting here. So probably just going to stick it in the back, right back here. With some double-sided tape. Making sure to keep it as far away from that body hold down screw as possible. And this was going to go to my lights, or whatever I decide to power off this winch controller. Whatever it's going to be is going to be small and light. As far as my lights, I don't run them all the time, so it's only going to be on for a couple minutes or whatever. I guess, if I wanted to, I just commented to Ben Brubaker from Buy It, Break It, Fix It, made a comment on my last video, or on the video. This is gonna be a two-parter, so the video before two videos back, I guess, made a comment about if the boat prop idea didn't quite work out too good, about putting a regular outboard or a regular motor with a prop on the motor, and hooking it up to the back, and I suppose that's very possible. I'm thinking with something like this, if you were like, you could probably power it with the winch controller, as long as you kept the motor relatively small, like an RS 360 or a 380 or something like that. As long as you kept it relatively small, you could probably power it off of this. I mean, I'm not sure, don't quote me on any of this, and it's definitely not gospel, so trial and error. I mean, if it's too much and it cooks, then I guess it was too much. So nevertheless, that's how I usually roll. So here we go. I'm gonna throw some double-sided tape on this guy, get this one mounted, and then we'll commence to getting the receiver in here. And we're back. I've got a little bit of double-sided tape on here. This is just your basic 3M double-sided tape. It's not too crazy. It does wear off in time or whatever. It breaks itself loose over time. But I like using it because it holds pretty good for the time being, and it's relatively easy to remove the sticky stuff off the back. So That's all I'm using. Bought it at my local Walmart, Meijer store, wherever. So let me get this guy put in here real quick. Well, guys, it has literally been about 20 minutes since the last time I hit the pause button. I pulled the back panels off the tape here for the light controller and started looking at different locations and was kind of hemming and hawing here because I need this to sit relatively low as far as the hood, so everything in here needs to be relatively low. Ideally, the foam in here underneath the hood on the roll cage is relatively level with these front shocks and this little shift mount right here, or shift, I don't know, your shift servo mount. I can dig out the foam a little bit up in the top here. Excuse this light cord here. This is pretty unprofessional here. I can cut out a little foam right here. That wouldn't be a big deal. I don't even know if you guys can see it or not. Sorry about that. I can cut out some foam right here. Because usually this whole entire half of the truck is above water anyways. So I could mount my speed controller up high. I'm thinking just because I don't have a shift servo in here. Since I don't have a shift servo in here, I've got a little piece of rubber hose on the shift linkage. I basically just took this servo mount off, unscrewed the nut back here, took that mount off, slid a rubber hose on there, put that mount back on, and then tighten the nut back down just so it's locked in low range, because low range is all the way back. So I don't know what I want to do here. Low profile is definitely key, especially in this area where the servos are. I'd rather have, you know, the foam bolstering or the foam padding on either side of this chassis and transfer case and whatnot, or transmission and all this crap. So layout here is going to be kind of somewhat key, especially with this big bundle of wires coming off the top of the receiver. Yeah, I can bend them and flex them around a little bit, but they kind of need to be sitting low. I mean, ultimately, the receiver almost needs to be sitting down here on the bottom of the belly pan here on the chassis. Preferably like this, towards the back, with the tall point towards the back like that, just for the way I have the foam laid out inside the body, just for clearance and whatnot. Or if I were to lay it sideways. Man, sorry about the horrible camera angles here. Perhaps mount it like this with some double-sided tape right on the edge of the servo. Probably be a good location for it. I mean, I could put the light controller up here on top of this transmission because it's relatively low profile. I can set the speed controller down here on the bottom of the chassis. I mean, I'd almost rather have the speed controller out of the water, but I haven't had any problems on my TF2, and that thing's, you know, seen a whole bunch of water. So, but you know, once again, I don't want to totally submerge it either. And if it's sitting down here on the bottom of the chassis, there's a good chance that it's going to be underwater the majority of the time. So I'm not too sure if I want to do that or not. So I'm kind of up in the air here on how I want to mount everything. I can put the light controller down here on the bottom, but I have to fit it in lengthwise like this and mount it vertically. Just because the belly pan is on an angle, and then it kind of flattens out a little bit just before it gets to the transmission, so there's like a slight little bend there or whatever. So it doesn't really, you don't have much surface area for tape to hold on to. Thinking. We'll be back in 1 second.